Hello, I'm Gerald Finken, and I'm CEO of RxE2. I'm excited to bring to you the next generation of packaging and labeling of clinical supplies. I've mentioned it a few times in the past in my LinkedIn, giving you some tidbits and a little bit of information about this new method that I'm going to be talking about that I'll get to in a minute. And what I'm excited is that I'm not only going to just talk to you for this 15 minutes, but I'm planning to do like 8 webinars that goes through the step-by-steps of those critical elements of this new, disruptive, innovative packaging and labeling method that I've created. I could back up and just start saying that 20 years ago, I had this concept of doing it differently, of bringing the practice of pharmacy into the GMP packaging and labeling operations. And so I created this method of on-demand packaging and labeling. In other words, you don't do any packaging and labeling of the clinical supplies until you get a shipment request. And if you think about that, that's like you get a prescription and a pharmacy you dispense. And that, over the last 20 years, has really changed the way we look at clinical supplies these days. 20 years ago, I brought direct-to-patient to the clinical supplies world. The idea there was with on-demand and direct-to-patient, we could eliminate waste from in the warehouse, at the clinical sites. But of course, there were some issues along the way that, of course, many companies are out today resolving. Next thing I want to do is bring to you what I'm calling E2 Dispensing. Now, E2 Dispensing to me is for everyone, everywhere, E2, everyone, everywhere dispensing, that we can get clinical supplies to anyone, anywhere, right, in the world by doing what is already being done, which is really the dispensing of medication in the real world. So this E2 dispensing is the packaging and labeling of investigational drugs by a pharmacist in a pharmacy setting. Think about that, in a pharmacy setting. The critical part of this is that every aspect of the packaging and labeling needs to be reimagined as we go down this new endeavor. And I want to say, please don't forget that RxE2, the company that I'm the CEO of, we're about incorporating the practice of pharmacy into clinical research. This is just the first of many things that are going to change by having pharmacists actively involved in clinical trials. So let's just do a review. I'm going to go over the 8 webinars that are coming up. I hope that some of them excite you and you want to learn more. And then week by week, I'll be presenting one of these. And feel free to reach out to me through LinkedIn and ask your questions. So here we go. The webinar series is going to start with what I consider the most important thing, and that is reimagining how clinical supplies are supposed to be handled or used. And we've talked about this term patient centricity an awful lot, but let's really embrace it. Let's be the patient and think about, wait a minute, from the patient's point of view, what do I want in clinical supplies, right? Most people are pretty used to the idea of getting a prescription and going home with a bottle that's labeled specifically for them with their name, the instructions, a phone number to call if they have questions, the doctor that dispensed, all those things that really are governed by the practice of pharmacy that we're all used to. So let's incorporate that. Let's start with that in mind. And when you think what this session is going to talk about is the mindset that we had in the past, the idea of like kitting and sending big blister cards to patients. It's like, are we looking at it from the patient's point of view, or are we looking at it from how the site needs to dispense it? And we're going to go into some of that, and I think you're going to find it pretty intriguing. The next thing, which is really very exciting to me, is this one here. ARR pricing. Now, when I created the on-demand concept, one of the biggest issues I had, besides the concept of how this is going to work, was contracting pricing. And so my model didn't fit the old traditional packaging and labeling model with the ideas that you're going to put a bunch of kits into storage. It's like, well, let's just pay as you go. In other words, you're only going to pay for what you request. That concept was tough. And so I was forced to do the pricing of on-demand to meet the traditional method. So this time I learned my lesson, and we're going to change that. With AAR pricing, it's going to be like one price, just the total price, and you're done. It's all inclusive. So for example, for less than 50 shipments, you can go up to 50 shipments a month at controlled room temperature medication is $15,000. That's it. You pay RxE2 $15,000, you get 50 shipments a month. Across protocols, you get 50 shipments a month. Different amounts in the bottle, different types of labeling, different protocol, $15,000 a month. So I eliminated that dilemma about pricing. So we'll definitely get into this one. I think you'll find that one really exciting. The next thing, of course, we'll talk about the planning and flexibility. The mindset here is now we're in the practice of pharmacy. So just like the commercial world, you have GMP material that gets sent to a pharmacy, right? Then the pharmacy follows the State Board of Pharmacy laws to dispense it in the commercial world. We're going to use that same model. We're going to have GMP material, which is usually bulk, right? Sent in 100 count bottles, 1,000 count bottles, vials sent to the pharmacy in unblinded manner. And then the pharmacy is going to dispense that medication. So think about it's like on-demand direct-to-patient on steroids. And think about what we can do with that and the flexibility. We move it to a GCP environment. And I'm telling you, what used to take me 40 hours to prepare the package, labor requirements, batch records, etc., takes me 4 hours now in a pharmacy manual. It's amazing what this is going to do for us. These are the top 3 things that I want to cover. But then what we're going to do is we're going to get into the facts. The frequently asked questions, you got to start saying, well, what about HIPAA? What about randomization? What about the returns and accountability? Well, we're going to address that. I'm going to tell you how we do it and how you can do it. How you too can get involved in this and have your own packaging and labeling operation change the way that you currently do it. Now, it's not going to be for everything. Like everything, we always thought it's going to be a little bit of both, but you're going to see how this is just going to be so much easier. We're going to talk about labeling requirements. FDA, GMP versus State Board of Pharmacy. We're doing direct to patient and we're dispensing from a clinic. They have to follow State Board of Pharmacy laws, right? And we'll definitely get into that. The other thing is counseling requirements. Do you know that when you dispense a drug to a patient, by law, pharmacists are required to counsel that patient? A pharmacist is required to counsel that patient. And so we're going to talk about some of that. The next thing we're going to talk about is the E2 dispensing and comparators. That's another one of these things everybody talks about. And I'm very excited about how this is just a real simple solution about what to do about comparators, especially for specialty drugs and REMS. And then, of course, the last thing we're going to talk about, the impact to the future. I've been saying this now for a while that, Moore's law is absolutely taking effect in drug development. And soon as we get into genomics, pharmacogenomics, we get into, precision medicine, every single medication is going to be patient specific, lot specific. And our old methods of packaging labeling don't work. It doesn't work. So how are we going to do it? Well, we're going to do it the same way when we expect to go market that material. When it goes out into the commercial world, we're just going to bring that into clinical trials and do it right from the beginning. So we know exactly how it's going to work when it goes to commercial. It's going to be pretty interesting stuff. Anyhow, those are going to be the 8 webinars I'm going to go over over the next 2 months. And I'm really excited to be able to do this for you and to share this information with you. Thank you so much.